everyone, I'm Lauren, also known as Stark and Strange here on YouTube and Instagram, and in this video I'll be showing you how to make your very first edit using After Effects. When you first open up After Effects, you should see a screen somewhat similar to this one. Keep in mind that I am using an older version of After Effects, CC 2017, so if you're using a newer version, yours may look slightly different, but I am pretty sure that all of the newer versions are quite similar anyway, so there shouldn't be too much difference. The first thing that you're going to want to do is to head on over to this button over here that says New Project. So once you click that, you should enter into a screen that looks somewhat like this. If you've never used After Effects before, your workspace may look slightly different to mine, such as your effects and presets may be over here in this corner, or actually no, they might be something like that, but you can easily just drag these from one side to the other. Oh my gosh, I'm messing this up. But I like to have mine over on this side, and yeah, we can figure out the rest later. The first thing you're going to want to do is to head down to my video description where I have put a download link to the clips that we're going to be using today. But once you've downloaded them, you will want to have your window open like this, and you can just simply drag and drop the file into this section over here. So now it should appear like this, and the next thing you're going to want to do is to drag it down to this button down here. This is the composition button, and this is how you can actually start making your first edit. You can also go up to here to make a new composition, and it will come up with a screen somewhat like this, and this is how you can make your own custom composition, but we won't need to worry about this time because I've already made the video for you. But yeah, so right now you should have something that looks like this, a blank screen, and some clips. So for today's video I've decided to use Bucky because why not? And so he's the person we're going to be editing today. But as you can see, the clips don't actually cover the whole of this. And if you press L twice on your keyboard, you will see the audio waveforms. And from the audio, we can see the different sections of our edit and what we are actually going to be focusing on today. So this, pretty much from this section onwards, around here, is basically where the intro is going to be of an edit. I'm leaving this blank for the moment because what we really want to be focusing on is the sequence of clips that we have here. So they go on for a bit and then they will stop somewhere around the middle. So if I was making an edit at the moment, this is the point where I would loop it, and we will do that later once we've finished editing. So this would be the second section of the loop over here, and then past this point, where you can see there's like a higher bump in the waveform, which you can use as markers, I guess, for the different sections of your edit. And basically after this point will be an outro, but we won't focus too much on that either. Anyway, right here is your timeline. This is where you will have all of your clips laid out, and this is where you can see your audio. This right here is your timeline indicator, and if you move it around, you can see all of the clips in the time. These will show your seconds of how long your edit is, and you can also see the time over here of where you are. So if I go all the way to the end, we can see that this is 47 seconds and 12 milliseconds long. So now the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to duplicate this particular clip so that we can separate the audio from the clips themselves. So what you want to do is, I'm using a Mac, by the way, so if you're on a PC, these keys may be slightly different, and I'll try put up the conversions for you later in post. But what I have to do on a Mac for duplicating is just Command D. And now you should see there are two clips. So now we can move along with our timeline indicator and find the part where this edit just starts. If you hold down Command and move the arrow keys, you can move down, up and down, frame by frame. And you basically want to find the very first frame of where this clip begins. And now to split a video on a Mac, you have to do Command Shift D. And now your top clip should split into two. We want to delete this section because we don't need it. And then we're going to go along all the way to the middle where our last clip is. And again, holding Command and the arrow keys, you can move along frame by frame to find the part where the clip ends. So now again, Command Shift D and split and delete. Alright, now we have the part here that we need. And so we don't have like a huge increase in volume at this point. We're going to go over to here to where this volume and this little eye icon are, and we're going to uncheck the sound icon on the top layer, and we're going to uncheck the eye icon on the bottom layer. So now this layer is only sound, and this layer is only clips. To make this easier to understand, we can also change the color, which you can do by selecting this box here to whatever you want. I've custom changed my colors, so yours will probably look slightly different, but you can choose whatever you want. And so I'll just do mine as this so I can understand which is which. Alright, so the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to use these markers here. Generally, I would use markers to help pinpoint spots in the audio that I would want to place a clip, but I've done it slightly different for you guys, and I've made what's called a base edit, which is where your clips are already laid out. But if we scroll in using this thing here, we can move the time indicator along, and you can see where the clip changes here, just there, moving along command and an arrow. And then we can drag this marker all the way here and holding shift to snap it to the time indicator. And then we can, actually I might move this one over here, but we can keep on moving along like this until we have all of our clips sort of separated by markers. Okay, so now that we've done that, the reason you'd be wanting to do that in an edit is because the markers are very helpful for pointing out beats in the audio, which is basically where you're going to be wanting to put your transitions or certain effects and certain beats in the audio that you want to emphasize. I mostly use them for transition points, so they are very useful in that respect. Okay, so now that we have all of these clips sort of separated, we can actually separate them into separate layers. So to do that, we just do Command-Shift-D, and onto each marker. You can hold shift to like get your time indicator onto that exactly. So wherever your time indicator is where you are going to be applying whatever key command you're doing. So if I'm doing Command-Shift-D, it will always split where this time indicator is. Okay, so now all of our clips are separated. We can actually start getting into the fun bit, which is transitions. So first of all, you're going to want to highlight all of your clips, like so, just holding down shift and clicking them. And you're going to want to go over here to this icon here. This is the motion blur icon, which is very integral to editing if you want to make your transitions look smooth. So you want to check this box here, and it should do it for all of them. And then you also need to check the master sort of motion blur, so that will enable motion blur over everything that you select motion blur for each individual clip, if that makes sense. So now motion blur will be turned on. Now the next thing you're going to want to do is add motion tile. So if you go up to your effects and presets, which may be over here depending on how your After Effects looks. It's been a while since I've first used it, so I'm not exactly sure where everything is meant to be. But if you get motion tile and you drag it onto your clip, you should see it appear in the effects controls panel. So it'll look something like this, and what you basically want to be doing, well actually I'll show you. So if you hold S on, you don't have to do this, but if you hold S on the clip, you can zoom out and you can see around the clip is basically a black screen. So the clip only extends to these certain points. But if we use motion tile, we can extend the output width and we can extend the output height so it looks like it's tiling. This is very integral for transitions because when you're scaling or rotating or sliding, you want to create the illusion that your clip never sort of ends, if that makes sense. You don't want the black screen is basically what I'm getting at. So we'll change these to around 300, which is pretty much my standard. And we're also going to check the mirror tiles. So this sort of helps create the illusion that your clip isn't actually ending when you're doing the transition. So I'm going to make the scale back down to 100. And your clip should just look as normal. So basically we want to check motion tile, or select it, and we're going to copy, Command C, and we're going to select all of these other clips, and we're going to Command V. So now all of these should have motion tile on them now. Now to actually get onto our first transition. So for the first clip, I always tend to do a scale. It's just a habit I've gotten into, and it's also one of the easiest transitions you could possibly do. So first up, we might do a scale out. So we're going to click the keyframe button here and another keyframe sort of near the end of your clip around here. Keyframes are basically where you tell After Effects, I want this particular effect to go from this value, whatever you put here, to this value here within this span of time. So we want our clip to end normally at 100, but we're going to start our clip at around 250 perhaps. So it should zoom in. And you can see that After Effects will automatically show your clip zooming out. That's a zoom out, but we want it to look a little bit nicer than that. So we're going to highlight, right click, and then easy ease, or you can do F9, but I will always do the right click version so you guys can see. Okay, so now it looks somewhat nicer. but not really. So we're going to head on over to the graph editor, which is this icon right here. So we click that. Make sure that your keyframes are selected when you do this, because if you don't select them, then you will see nothing. So make sure you have at least one of them selected, and you can see something like this. If you don't see this particular graph right here, go down to this icon here, and you can see you can change them at speed graph or value graph. I always tend to use the value graph as personal preference. You can use either, they basically do the same thing, but I just feel like I have more control with the value graph. So the way that I like to do my graphs is I drag this handle all the way to the end, and you can hold shift to make sure it stays completely horizontal, and I drag this handle downwards, something like this. With a graph, like the steeper it looks is basically the faster that the keyframes are moving from one point to the other, and as it goes down here, it'll basically be slowing down. So it'll look something like that. So that's your very simple, very, very simple zoom out transition. So now we're going to transition onto the next clip. So I think I might do a slide this time, which is another very easy transition, so this should be alright for you guys that are just starting out. So what you want to do now is press P on your keyboard, and you should see the position effect down here. Before you do anything, you're going to want to right click position, and you're going to click separate dimensions, so that we can only focus on either the X position or the Y position at a time. I'm going to be using the Y position this time, and Y basically means you can move your clip up and down. So I'm going to make a keyframe here, and I'm going to drag it somewhat towards the end of my clip, and I'm going to bring it all the way to just a frame before the clip actually ends. Okay, so I think I will scale down so we can do something like this. So it can basically look like your clip is completely reflected on the screen. And now, once you're happy with how far down your slide is going, just drag the keyframe actually to the end of your clip, so that if you went on it, you'd see the screen of the next clip. And now we're going to highlight Easy Ease, as so, and then back to the graph editor. The reason why I would have you do the separate dimensions earlier is because if you didn't, you wouldn't be able to see these handles right here. So hopefully you did. And so we can drag the handles all the way to something similar to what we did before. With the graphs, you can change them whenever you want. It's completely up to you what you want them to look like. You can experiment with how different graphs look, but I always tend to do something similar to this. So now we have our first clip completed. And now we need to continue the slide transition onto the next clip. So again, we're going to press P, go to separate dimensions, click on Y, and then do another keyframe towards the end. Now on the first keyframe, we're going to want to be doing the opposite sort of direction to what the first clip was. So we're basically going to slide it downwards this time, I think. Is that right? Yes. You can check that just by going along and making sure they're going in the same direction. Okay, so now that we've got that, we can select Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease, Graph Editor, and do your graph as you like. And the thing I like to do with my slide transitions is I actually bring the first keyframe forward by one, because otherwise you get like this weird sort of frozen frame effect, and this bringing it one frame forward just kind of adjusts that. Sometimes you need to adjust the graph if you do that, but mine seems to be alright for the moment. Alright, let's take a look. I mean, these don't look like the best because the clips are moving, so in the reflection you will sort of see a bit of movement, but you know, we're just getting the hang of it. You could easily get rid of that with like having borders at the top or something, but for the moment we're just not going to worry about that. Alright, I think next we will do a rotation transition. So, similar to how we've done before, but this time we're going to press R, and we're going to press a keyframe. We're going to go to the end of the clip, or actually a frame before, and I think we will do a transition to the right. How far? We'll just do 180. Select Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease, Graph Editor, and do your graph as so. So onto the next clip, we're going to press R, a keyframe here, and a keyframe towards the end. We're going to select, keyframe assistant, easy ease, graph editor, out, and I didn't actually change the values. So go to the first keyframe, and since we did a positive 180 here, we're going to have to do a negative 180. And now go to the graph editor and make it look like this. Now the same sort of thing applies with the rotation transition that I did for the slide. It's kind of hard to notice, but you can sort of see that this, I'm pointing to the screen again, but this sort of clip sort of looks like it's still, which we don't want, but if we move on to the next one, we can see there is lots of motion below and movement. We don't want that for the first clip, well, for the first frame, so we're gonna drag our keyframe forward, well, backwards by 1, and we should get that. So now it will look like it actually flows better. So I might do a zoom out transition again. So we're going to do S for scale, and we can do a normal zoom transition. I do about 40 to 50 when I'm zooming out, so we'll just do 50 for this time. Go here. Something like that. Graph editor, make it like this. Alright. And basically, this is like a very repetitive process, but you basically just want to keep on doing this all the way till you finish your edit. We're only going to be using these 3 transitions for this particular edit. Just keep it nice and simple. So yeah, but if you just keep on following what I'm doing, you should get the hang of it. Like this. Alright. And if you want to use the same value, actually I'm deciding not to combine transitions this time. If you want to use the same value to go like do a zoom out and a zoom back in, we can just drag this end keyframe towards the middle. And then if we go to the end of the clip again, we can copy this value because it's 250, which we're zooming out from, and by the end of the clip we want to zoom in again to the same value. So we can copy that and paste it towards the end, but we still need to go to the graph editor to actually make it look nice, because After Effects is smart, but it's not that smart. So we do that. We can let it render and should look like that. And we'll zoom in again. Press S here. Scale to the end. Another keyframe, highlight, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and then change this to, what was I doing? Zooming in. Okay, so we need 50. That's 59. Okay. And then graph editor, and we can do this. And the same thing with the keyframe forward applies to the zoom in. Well, yeah, zoom in as well, because I don't like how they look on the first frame usually. So we'll do that again. So we should have something like this at the moment. These clips don't really look that good with the motion tile because there's like too much movement in them, I'm now realizing, but for future reference for your own edits, when you're choosing clips, try to choose ones with like not too much movement around the sides like I have, because if you're using clips sort of like this one, it looks a lot nicer when you're doing zoom outs and things, and you don't get this sort of weird movement. But we're going to continue on. This time we might do a slide to the left or right. So we're going to use position, and we're going to separate dimensions. I'm going to do the X value. So we can slide from left to right. And I think we will slide this way. So just like that. Drag a keyframe to the end, select keyframe assistant, easy ease, and then make your graph. Should look like this. And now we're going to do it the same, well, opposite way actually for the next clip. So X position, keyframe to the end, here, and drag it the opposite way, like so. I'm going to highlight Easy Ease, graph editor, and do your graph. And also drag the first keyframe backwards. Alright, so I think now we might do a zoom out rotation to spice things up a little. If you get lazy like me and you don't want to keep on doing zoom outs again and again, you can also just copy and paste things from one clip to another. So we did a zoom out here. So I think I might just select these keyframes and we can Command C, and then, well, I mean, I would have actually have to do this one first, but we're going to move on to the second clip. I'm going to Command V on this one. So it should look like this. It currently looks like there's no transition there, but we will get a zoom out on the first clip from this one here. So we can copy the scale, and then we can paste it onto this clip. Press U to see all of your keyframes, and you can see that they aren't quite aligned. So I'll just move them with them both highlighted, and it should now look like this. Perfect. See, these look a lot nicer when they don't have movement, as you can see. So choose clips sort of like these ones when you're actually making your edits because they look a lot nicer than these ones. All right, so now for the rotation part, we can align well, we can press U to see where all of our keyframes are, and you can go here to where your first sort of scale keyframe is, and you can press R, do another keyframe, and you can press U again to see all of them. And we can do a rotation, so we can do, how about -90? We'll try. Let's drag that to the end. I think with rotation, sometimes it can look a bit sudden if you have everything moving together at the same point, so I might actually drag the rotation all the way to the beginning so it looks a bit more like it's flowing together rather than all just moving at sudden points, if that makes any sense. So I might make the graph look like this. Okay, so we can see the beginnings of a rotation zoom out. And now if we're going to do the same, well, opposite thing for the other side, you do R, drag to the end, press U to see all of your keyframes. So we've done -90, so we'll do a +90 on the other clip, like so. We'll highlight, Easy Ease, graph editor, do our graph, like so. Drag this first keyframe backwards by 1. And now we have a nice little zoom out. And I will do a zoom in because by the end of my edits, I'm always lazy. So we'll go on with that trend and we will do a simple zoom in. So we can just drag this keyframe to the middle because we already have scale going on this clip. We can go to the end, do 250, go to your graph and change it up. So now it should look like this. Okay, and on the last clip, we're going to do scale again. We're going to do 3 points this time because we're going to do a loop, and to do a loop we need to make sure that that the last transition flows into the first transition, which was a zoom out. So we're going to have to do a zoom out again on this last clip to have them all flow together. It'll make more sense when I show you the loop, but for the moment we're going to Easy Ease, and since this clip was zooming in, we're also going to do a zoom in, so we have to start outwards a bit. So we'll do 50, it'll go inwards, and then we have to go out again, so we'll also do 50 on this keyframe. And now we can go to our graph editor, move these outwards, holding shift to keep them horizontal, and move these upwards. And now, lovely. So another tip that I have for you guys so that you can see whether this is an actual effective loop or not, you can grab these this like work area selection sort of tool, and you can drag it to where your clips begin, holding shift to snap it to the exact point. And then if we move along to, hang on, where the last clip is, and we can also drag this end one all the way to where we want it to be. And I can zoom in to just make sure that's correct. Okay, so now it should loop this particular highlighted section over and over, so we can see if it actually works. So this is our edit so far. And now to see how well it loops in a second. Yeah, that's pretty good. So that's effectively all you need to do for an edit, but I will also show you some extra things that can help spice up your edit a bit, just using the standard After Effects effects that actually come with the program, so you won't need to download anything. Okay, so firstly we're going to do some flashes, I think. Normally I would use a flash from the Sapphire plugin, but we're not going to use plugins for this tutorial, so instead I will use the brightness and contrast effect, and I will simply drag it onto my clip. And now we're going to keyframe the brightness by pressing this keyframe here, pressing U to see all of our keyframes on this particular clip. Then we can drag it towards the end wherever we want, and then we can go down here to add in the second clip. So it doesn't have to be too bright, but I might just start with 100 maybe. And now, just like we do with the transitions, the effects keyframes are pretty much the same. So, but we are going to do our graph slightly different this time. We're not going to have it super fast at the beginning because we do actually want to see some of the flash. So we're going to just hold shift and drag horizontally the first handle there. And we're going to drag this one somewhat like this. And if we press play, you'll see it sort of just flashes. It can be your choice or not whether you want to include this. I'm just going to copy paste the same effect onto every clip to see how it looks. So we can basically just go up to the effect here, Command C, make sure you're always going to the beginning of your clip, because wherever you paste it is wherever the effect is going to start. So we're going to go to the beginning and Command V, and you can see it's brightened, and we'll go to Command V on every single clip at the beginning, and you should see these little dots showing where the keyframes are being added, like so. It just helps add a little more pizzazz to your edits, even though I don't ever use this effect this much, but I think for a beginner this is just something nice to add. Oop, hang on, I need to change this. This one doesn't work. You can see here that it's had like the frozen clip effect that I don't like. So we're going to actually change this and bring this keyframe forward. And that's sort of an indicator to the process of editing, really, is you'll be watching your edit and you'll see all these little like mistakes that you make, and you just have to go and fix them, because everything can be changed in After Effects until you export your final thing. So nothing is set in stone until you're completely done. Okay, so now that we've done with that, I'm gonna teach you guys how to pre-comp your clips. So we're gonna select all of our clips like so. And a pre-comp is basically where you compress all of these separate clips into one single layer, and you can manipulate them all together if you wanted to. But we're gonna select all of these, right click on them, just one of them, and we're gonna go down to this section here called pre-compose. And when you're pre-comping, you can name it anything, but I'm usually not bothered. But you're gonna wanna check this section here and this box, and then you're gonna press OK. And now it should look something like this. Yours may of course be a different color, because I have custom colors on mine, but it should look like this. And now all of these separate layers have been compressed into one again. And now this is going to come in very handy when we want to loop our edit. So we're going to drag out the workspace to the ends as normal. And now we're going to select our main composition and we're going to duplicate it by doing Command D. And now we're going to drag it to where the first one ends, and this is basically how you create a loop, or at least how I create a loop. So now it'll just loop, and hopefully it should go along to the same beats, or roughly the same. I know I did this in a couple seconds, so it may not be perfect. I will also just quickly show you how to export your edit. There are two sort of different ways that you can export your edits. You can either export them directly through After Effects, or you can use another program called Media Encoder. I've never used that, I just export normally through After Effects, but I do understand that I think with the earlier versions from 2018 upwards, you may need to use Media Encoder, but if you have 2017 or you just like to see how it's sort of done, then you can go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue, and you should see this render queue workspace here. I go to Output Module, Lossless. I have mine on QuickTime, and I change the format options from animation to H.264. Press OK. You can name it what you'd like, and you could save it wherever you like. I'm just going to keep it like that, and you just pressed render. And now After Effects will take its time to do its thing. You can also hold down caps lock so that it's showing up, and this will basically stop After Effects from displaying the clips as they render on the screen. So it'll make the process slightly faster, but not too much, but you can do that if you'd like. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope this tutorial was helpful for any of you that are just starting out with After Effects. I completely understand that it's quite a confusing program to learn at first, so if you didn't gather everything, that's okay. It's quite a learning curve. It took me at least a month to sort of figure out the basics, so if you've gotten everything after this one video, I will be very impressed. And yeah, leave some suggestions in the comments if you'd like to see more, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!